What's the nature of your emergency?
Welcome back to the Tactical Living Podcast. I'm your host, Ashley Wilton, joined by Sergeant Wilton. Clint, how are you?
I'm excellent.
There's this really interesting concept called code switching. And basically, when you're a police officer especially, you have this switch that happens between when you're on duty and when you're off duty, meaning that there's this massive distinguishment between who you are.
Really thinking about it, like it's very true. Like you're going out and like, I think, and I want to say like your values, your everything that you like, your core values will always be the same, but a perception based reality is like when I'm out on patrol, like you're adapting your demeanor and your talking points throughout each individual call for service or who you're speaking to align to where you can kind of humanize yourself. But when you're at home, like you're your truest person, and it's being able to incorporate all those points as your truest person self into your career.
It's really interesting because there are not many professions to where the person that you have to be at work is not the same as who you are when you're with your family.
Yeah.
Right? Like a doctor is not like a different persona, or doesn't have to put on all of the elements emotionally that come on with a uniform that a police officer does.
And, you know, especially nowadays, I'm seeing a lot of younger officers, like, you know, when they go home, they're not this, we'll just say as an asshole. They're not an asshole. They're not these people going out talking about, I have this massive ego and this is who I am and stuff. When they're in uniform, there's almost a false sense of superiority to them compared to when they go home and they're just their normal self.
Yeah, it's really interesting because when you're toggling between protector and partner, or enforcer and friend, or officer and parent, there's this identity split, and it can leave you feeling really emotionally exhausted or disconnected, even misunderstood if you don't understand it yourself.
Yeah, there's almost a divide. If you don't recognize that and you don't know, okay, when I put on my uniform, this is how I am. And when I take it off, this is how I am. It's hard to create that divide or that separation to even understand it.
Yeah, and there are a lot of signs that you might be stuck in this sort of code switching identity loop. And one of them might be that you struggle emotionally when you shift gears after a shift. So you walk into your home after a really long shift, and maybe you still feel like you're patrolling emotionally. So you give short answers. You might be hyper aware. You might have a distant tone with your family. And it could make it really hard for you to be present with your loved ones or even to feel grounded.
Having that switch being flipped is one of those things that I've worked through, and Ashley and I both worked throughout my entire career. It's having that understanding. Okay, there's a difference. There needs to be those cues, those ways to turn it off as you're, on your drive home, as you're taking off your uniform. Like it's a subconscious thing as you're going through those steps to be able to go home and be fully present.
Yeah, because sometimes your family might get the leftovers of you. So let's say that you're super drained, you're quiet, you're irritable at home, but then you're always composed and mission focused when you're at work. When that happens, it could build up resentment and even emotional distance, not only with your family, but any of your relationships.
When you have that energy turned on all day, and then by the time you come home, you're just mentally and physically exhausted based off of that. It's not fair to you, but it's not fair to your family. And that's why it's important to always, keep fueling your tanks, keep filling it up to where when you come home, you can be your best self all the time. There's going to be situations to where there's sometimes you're just physically and mentally drained because of it's a traumatic incident or it's a severe incident and you're just going. But it's recognizing that and having the communication with your loved ones to say, hey, I'm exhausted today. I just need a break.
A breakthrough that I've seen happen with a lot of the clients that I've worked with is that they feel like a stranger in their own home. And that's such a hard thing for them to admit. And sometimes I think that somebody might have worn the badge for so long that you don't even know who you are anymore without it. And this contributes to something like identity loss, and it can even create a lot of resentment, but especially down the lines when it comes towards retirement.
Yeah, having that like you said, that identity loss is something that you could definitely, it can impact you over time, because if you don't know who you are personally, but outside of wearing the badge, then it's a struggle, especially when you retire. Once you are out of that profession, like, it's who are you? And that's why it's important to have things off duty, and that you can kind of lean on and to build upon as you're progressing through your career, not just waiting till retirement, but progressing yourself that way throughout your career.
Yeah, and I think a lot of people use humor or even silence to avoid that deeper connection. So you might joke about something that was really stressful and say that it's nothing or I'm fine. And I think that when we suppress this emotional element of our life, it could make other people feel like they're shut out from it.
Yeah, because you're separating yourself from it. You're not being your true self.
Something I really value about you, Clint, is that your identity does not ever feel split. I think that things with you feel incredibly integrated. And because of that, I think that's why you've never had that sort of an internal conflict when it comes to that feeling of isolation or even long-term stress.
Yeah, and it's and we've talked about this amongst ourselves multiple times. It's like, what makes me different from others? And it's just, I think it's having that foundational home life, and it's having the support and love from you, Ashley, that really supports me. But it's being able to have that check process as I'm coming home to say, okay, now I'm done being the boss. I'm done being the person who needs control. I can come home and be present.
Yeah, there are a lot of ways to be able to kind of bridge that gap between the tactical you and the true you. And, you made mention of that transition ritual between work and home. So something like changing your clothes, you could say a prayer, you can blast your music, you can have this sort of 5-minute decompression routine, anything that works for you in order to be able to mentally switch modes. I think that the most important aspect to that is to just do it intentionally. And sometimes we miss the mark when it comes to talking to our family or to the people that mean the most to us, not only about what happened or what we did, but how we're feeling. So you don't necessarily have to unload all of the crap that you just saw and went through if you don't want to. But, and that comes down to boundaries and whatever you have in place prior. But a lot of the times we fail to just talk about how we're feeling.
Yeah, it's sharing with your loved ones, talking about, okay, man, that was pretty tough today, or listen to this funny story I had an experience with today. It's being able to incorporate your loved ones into your work life as well.
Or it could just be the truth, right? Like, this really shitty thing happened to me today. I don't want to get into the details of it, but right now I'm feeling really emotionally disconnected because of XYZ. What I need from you is this.
Yeah, and being able to have that full transparency is super helpful, not only for you, but for your loved ones.
You mentioned this already, but reintroducing yourself to your own interests, like your hobbies, your friendships, any kind of routines that have nothing to do with work, that might help to be able to remind you who you are beyond the badge.
Having friends outside of just your general workplace and not being so invested into your department and that lifestyle of being a police officer, like having that separation is important, because that breaks you away from that day-to-day activity that you're going through. And it's important to be able to break away from that.
And it's okay to know that there doesn't have to be this hard line. Like, you can get comfortable with that messy kind of middle. And what I mean by that is you don't have to have this perfect balance between things that are tactical and soft all of the time. And sometimes you might ebb and flow through both of them, and it's okay.
Yeah, it's creating, you define that timeline and everything that's going on within your life. And it's being able to incorporate these tools and tricks and techniques to be able to create that divide or integrate them together as well.
I've seen a lot of first responders try to have conversations with their spouses, and it creates a lot of frustration when the spouse just doesn't get it. And this could be from a place of being naive. This could be from a place of, something that they have going on deeper within their relationship. Like, there's a lot of reasons for the spouse to just not get it. And what happens is that could create a lot of resentment within the relationship. And so there, that's a whole issue on its own. But in regard to this topic, I think it's important to make sure that you do have an outlets of somebody or somebodies that you can talk to about things with people that actually do get it.
Yeah. And I think especially when there's a heavy incident, there's something heavy that you deal with that day, and you can control your outlook on things and your reaction towards things. And we've talked about this before too, is remembering these incidents, whether it's a traumatic incident, it's not about you. And if you can start reformatting your way of thinking when it starts coming to that, it really helps.
I hope you've gotten some value out of today's episode. If you have, do us a favor, drop a review, subscribe down below, and as always, know that I'm sending you a long, tight hug from my home to yours.